have you ever heard my story with testosterone?
No.
So pre me doing this, pre me being in content, health and wellness, recovery, all this stuff, I had always lived a somewhat active lifestyle, like we talked about earlier, always moving. But in the car business, it was not a very active first job. I stayed active, and I would have clubs of people who wanted to be active. And like at 9 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, every 3 hours, we would always meet on the front deck, and we would drop down and do 20 push-ups. Just something like little micro snacks, like throughout the day, or workout snacks, as people are calling them now. We were doing these for years just to move blood through the muscles at work. But we started having kids, stress, drinking a little bit, not ever getting drunk, but drinking a little bit, all the normal, but not necessary and very unhealthy American habits I was doing and I was living. Started losing drive, started dealing with massive brain fog, low libido. And I was young. I was in my early 30s at the time. This wasn't long ago. So my dad, who had been on testosterone, don't mean to put him out there, but like my dad and other people who had been on small doses of testosterone for a few years and were like, hey, it's kind of a good thing. I didn't know any better. And at the end of the day, no one was influencing me. I made my own decision, but I went to a local clinic. I got my blood work done. The process was not very fun. I had to go to all these places. I was all over the road. It wasn't like working with blokes where they send someone to your house and it's awesome. But the process was grueling. I got in there and I was super nervous because one, I don't like needles. And two, I did not want, just like you said, I did not want to start at an early age taking testosterone when I thought there's other options that were out there. So I sit down with this doctor and he prescribes me 1 cc of testosterone twice a week is what he wanted me to take. And as you know, that's a lot. But my levels were under 200. I don't mind. I've shared this story, so like I don't mind sharing this. My levels were under 200. I was at the time like 33 years old, and I was kind of desperate. And I was working out. I started trying to do some of the right things. This was shortly after I started cold plunging and sauna on a regular basis. So I felt like I was doing some of the right things. And I got my blood work done after I had started doing the right things for like 6 months or so. And those were my numbers. So it's like, holy smokes, what were my numbers prior to me cold plunging, taking cold showers, eating red meat, doing all this stuff? So I was somewhat desperate and I was like, well, I guess I have to. I guess like I'm at this point. So to your point, I said, okay. I didn't know the process. I got home. I had this needle that was like 2 inches long, super big needle, super scary. I'm like, what do I do with this thing? There was no training manual. Right. So I call somebody. I'm like, hey, like, what do I do? And they're like, okay, like reach down, grab your butt cheek. I like go to poke myself and I'm like, I can't do this. Like, there's no way I can do this. So I convinced my wife to do it and like she does it and it hurts. And I'm like, everything about it sucked. So, and then like her pushing an entire syringe of not an entire syringe, but a full, 100, whatever it is, milliliters or whatever it is, into my tuchus. That whole process was a process. And I'm like, I got to do this twice a week for indefinitely. Like, there's no way I'm going to do this. Right. And it was expensive. Like to your point, like that was a lot of TRT and it was expensive. So I did it I never did a second shot that week. I just did one. The next week I procrastinated. I didn't do it on the same day. And then I convinced my wife to do it again and it sucked. The next week. So I never did the full prescription of what they wanted me to do. And then I eventually just kind of weaned myself off and just stopped, like just completely stopped. And then I started working with blokes and I shared that story with them. And they're like, there's so many other things you could do. You can take TRT. Of course you can take, and you know what, you might benefit from a very, very small amount of TRT, not a full syringe of it, not twice a week.
Right.
That is 100% going to shut down the production of it. So there's like more to the story and I plan on doing a second video kind of following up. I've had people ask because I did my TRT experience video on YouTube and it's helped some people because other people have gone through that same experience. It's like, it's almost one of those subjects that people don't want to admit that they are considering because it is, kind of looked down upon. Because there are other options and there really are. Like working with blokes exposed a lot of options and I was able to get my levels to a very good number without having to take supplemental TRT. And we've made some great lifestyle changes, which I would love to recommend to other people, but sorry to like throw that out there on your show, but I just think it's a topic that I don't mind sharing, that I've experimented with that, and can continue to be open-minded to any type of peptide if it's necessary. So it's just fun to kind of learn. Once again, I feel like I'm just a big science experiment.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And, my story is, somewhat similar. I've done it for a while too. And then I realized that it took me almost a year for my LH, the luteinizing hormone, to get back and start producing, or trigger the production of endogenous testosterone. And I'm like, and I only did testosterone, I think, for 2 years, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm like, imagine doing this for decades. You might never get back. And at the time, I took HCG to kind of keep my own production going, which is ridiculously expensive.
Right.
And despite that, I'm like, no, you know what? This is so not worth it. There's got to be better ways of doing this. And so I totally agree, and I appreciate you sharing this.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully it's helpful to somebody out there. I feel like some people, they see how the Liver King was like exposed. It's like, if you look at this guy and think he's never taken anything, you're already out of your mind. Like, but there's also like, if there's a supplement out there that's going to make you reach your goal a little bit faster, most people are would love to just do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It just,
why
we're
not?
humans.
Life's short. We all try to get to our goal quicker, and there's usually nothing wrong with it if you just have to be aware of the potential consequences, right?